Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I am joined today with my first in-person collaboration with We Need to Talk with Kris Godinez.
Yes!
And we are going to chat about a couple of things I've been wanting to ask her for a while. But before we jump into that, for the people who don't know who she is, could you tell a little bit about yourself and where they can find you?
Yes, I am a licensed professional counselor in Arizona. I have the We Need to Talk channel on YouTube. I also have Facebook and, good Lord, bunch of other stuff. So anyway, that's where I am. So,
and I'll put links in the description of the video, so definitely go check her out. Everyone talks a little bit about how I am very cautious of my language. She cuts right to the quick, tells you how it is, a lot of great information. You do a weekly Sunday show, right?
Weekly Sunday show on YouTube, yes.
So, and if you sign up on her Facebook thing, she'll put out what the topic is, so you know what it is, and you can get your questions ready, and she'll do the topic and then hit the questions. It's really cool. I get to watch it every once in a while. I try not to say too much. Don't want to detract from anything. But Kris, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, I know a lot of people, when they're dealing with a narcissist, people will say, well, we'll start with the when you're in the beginning part of it, when you really don't know. It's like, let's say, don't ever go to a therapist with a narcissist. And I know I've said to other people, because I understand that, if you don't try, then sometimes you can really beat yourself up on it. Yeah. What do you recommend for somebody who is realizing that maybe something's not right, or they want to save their marriage, they're struggling with, is Billy or is Susie really toxic? Or they don't even know about the narcissist thing, but if they're watching this video, they at least probably have that. What do you recommend for somebody in that type of situation?
So it's walking the knife's edge is what it is. Because if you go to therapy with a narcissist, with an abuser, they will take whatever you say in therapy and use it against you. Like, everything you say can and will be used against you.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So let's say you go to couples counseling and you bring up a very serious issue. Let's say that the partner is cheating, right? Or accusing you of cheating. Right. And then it turns out, oh no, they're the one that's cheating. Yeah. So what they'll do is they'll come home and they'll go, well, why did you bring that up? And da-da-da-da-da-da, and they'll just pound you with whatever you said in therapy and abuse you with it, basically. Right. So that's why therapists say, for the love of God, no, totally don't go. However, you brought up a really good point, and I want you to talk about that, and then I'll answer. So,
and this is, and listening to what you were saying, I say spot on. And what I would say when I tell people is, you have to go in hoping for the best, right? But being realistic and looking at the actions and the words, because a narcissist or a toxic person will say one thing and show something else. So in my mind, if that was a situation, if I had gone to therapy, this is hypothetical because this wasn't my situation, but let's say, and I did actually try marriage counseling with mine, and it was a complete disaster.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, in that situation you were just talking about, if you go back and you start getting attacked, that right there is more real, tangible evidence that you're dealing with somebody that you're not going to be able to deal with.
Yes, because in a healthy, normal relationship, what ends up happening is after the therapy session, the couple comes together and goes, I didn't know you felt that way. Right. Oh my gosh, let's work on this. Let's work on the communication. Let's set up a date night. Let's keep going, and let's make sure we keep going to therapy. What ends up happening with a narcissist is they take the information, they beat the living crap out of you, and then they start coming up with excuses why they can't continue to go. Because as soon as the therapist points the finger at them and says, you're the problem.
Well, and then the other part I want to add on that, and this is the other thing I think people need to be aware of, and I'll ask you this, because I'm not a therapist, and you are. So my take on it is, if I go to a therapist for marriage counseling, and very quickly or in a very short order, that therapist is siding with one person over the other, that's a horrible bad sign.
That's a horrible bad sign.
Because that's not your job.
No. Right. So a therapist's job in marriage counseling, we advocate for the relationship, not for a particular person. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if the therapist is advocating for one or the other, and they're not balanced, and they're not advocating for the relationship, then you've got a bad therapist. Get the hell out. That's the best I can say.
Exactly. And I think that's a really critical point to hit, because, it's two-part, right? I mean, I do agree that if you know, and you strongly suspect that your partner is a toxic narcissist, or just toxic. I mean, let's say you don't even, it's not even to the thing, we won't even get into diagnosing, because... Or
they're just abusive.
Yeah. You take that information, use that as data points to validate your concerns. Right. So if you were to go, like you were saying, and you go, and the therapist is being neutral and actually working to help both of you.
Right.
And afterwards, you're having conversations about, oh, wow, what can we do to fix this? Mm-hmm. Because like in my situation, the therapist did that stuff, and it's like, hey, what can you guys do together? And, we throw some stuff out there, and it's like, you should do that. In my situation, she had nope, not going to do it. I even did some things, not at the request of the therapist, but I was doing a lot of reading, like the 5 love languages. I looked at that. I found it very fascinating, and if anyone's hasn't read that, I don't know what your view on it is.
Yeah, I like it.
I think it's a great thing because it helps you find how each other ticks, and then find what the other person needs, and they know what you need. And if you're working cooperatively,
that's the key word.
Then you will do that. In my situation, when I found that, I went to mine and I'm like, hey, you should read this book. She's like, I'm not reading that book. I don't read that book. I won't do it. Right.
See, and that's just it. So the therapist or the spouse will say, hey, I found this great book. Can we please do this, or can we please work on this? And then what the abuser will do is like, I don't read. I don't have time. I'm too busy.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
That's
blah.
not my... because mine actually reads all the time,
right.
My ex.
It's not my thing.
But I don't read that type of thing.
Yeah.
I only read fantasy. I don't read self-help books, so I'm not going to do it.
Here's reality. If your spouse comes to you and says, honey, we have a problem, a normal, healthy person will say, oh my God, let's go fix this. I will read whatever needs to be read. I will do whatever needs to be done in order to fix the relationship, because here's my priority. You and I are my priority. With a narcissist, it's never a priority.
It's so funny you said that, because I actually said that to her a few times. It's like, hey, you're the priority. The relationship is a priority. I had some hobby. I had guitars and stuff. And I'm like, if that's a problem, I literally was at the point at that stage. If she would have said your guitars are a problem, I was going to throw them in the trash. And
see, here's the thing.
Well, I didn't know.
Yes.
But see, and
we need to talk about that.
Yeah. And this gets into the point I was talking about is I could, and just for anyone who doesn't know, I'm the one who left in my situation. The data points stacked up enough to where I'm like, I just can't deal with this. And we had a marriage counselor, I had my own therapist, and it just came to a head. But what I was trying to do, or what I needed to do for me, is if I didn't try, I don't know if I would have been able to forgive myself, and I definitely wouldn't be able to leave, right?
So that's a point. So basically, my thing is don't go. If you know they're abusive, don't go. But you've got a good point. You've got a really good point. So if you are in denial to the point where you're like, but I have to do everything I can to save the relationship, and this is what we do because we get deep into that denial.
Oh yeah.
If we get to that point, then fine, go to marriage counseling, but be aware if they use anything that you say against you, if they are combative, if they are resistant, if they won't take the suggestions of the counselor, be done.
And one thing I probably need to mention on this that I think was probably a saving grace on this is I had my own therapist and we were doing the marriage counseling. Right. So it wasn't just the marriage counselor that was dealing with both of us, or even individually, because we did do some individually, but I still had someone, on the side who was helping me out. And actually, I was using the EAP, the Employee
Assistance Program.
Yeah, EAP. Yeah, I was going to say, I was getting the P first.
That's okay.
So anybody who has a bigger company, you might have an EAP that gives you maybe 6 to 12 sessions with a licensed therapist that's contracted with your employer to provide that.
Yes.
Now, you won't be able to go with them for years,
right,
but you can at least, if money's an issue or you're just concerned, it's a resource that you should definitely look into.
Another thing that you can look into too is that psychology departments will have a practicum program. So if they do, you can get free counseling through them. So like the University of Phoenix, at least I know they do that. They're looking for people to have the master's students practice on. You'll get 6 weeks of free counseling. So,
nice. Okay.
Yeah. And it's supervised by a master's level counselor. So.
Yeah, that's one thing I just to hit on this that, and I know this kind of is a little off topic, but we were talking about this a little bit before, is I don't think people really understand. Well, my girlfriend is in the process to get licensed, right? Mm-hmm. So I have a little bit of an insight just from somebody who's struggling to find a supervised observation, or what do you
the
supervision hours. I mean, you have to get a master's degree, then you have to get like 2,000 or 3,000 hours of supervised.
3,000.
Is it gone up? I can't remember.
It's 3,000 in Arizona.
Yeah, And just so you realize, I mean, most of the time when you're working, you're not doing 8 hours a day of bona fide time that can be counted. I mean, sometimes if you're lucky, but it takes a tremendous thing to be a therapist. Yeah. The other thing I want to mention, and I think we may have talked about this before, is a therapist isn't a coach.
No.
And I think a lot of people miss that. And I did too, because when I was going to mine, I'm like, okay, this person has all the answers. And she actually did have a lot of answers. But I didn't realize at first that, she can't say, hey, knucklehead, can't you see the tea leaves here? You know, it's like, so your job is almost like a guide to help the person understand.
Yes. So the difference between a life coach and a therapist, life coaches deal with what is happening in the present. So like, you're having issues with this, I can coach you through that right here, right now. My job is to go back and go, lie on the couch and tell me about your mother and your father and why are you dating abusers? So my job is to go back through the childhood and figure out what the hell, what caused this codependency, what caused this desire to please somebody who's unpleasable, what caused this issue. So this is obviously rooted in what was in the past. So does that make sense? So life coaches deal with the present. I deal with the past.
I always like to try to bring that up because I know a lot of people think that they're going to go to their therapist, they're going to say, this is my situation, and they're going to go, oh, dude, or oh, honey, you need to do this. You need to get the hell out of there. That person's abusive.
Yeah, I will give a caveat on that. There are times when I have said that.
Well, but then it's almost like a mandatory report type thing, right? I mean, So
if a woman or a man, and men can be abused too, guys. This is the thing that drives me crazy is that for some reason in almost all the books, I love Harriet Breaker, but she always does this thing where it's like women are the abused and men are the abuser. I'm like, no. I've seen women be the abusers. So if a man comes to me, I got a story for you on that one. And the woman has, for example, framed them for domestic violence, threw themselves into a glass coffee table.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, crazy. So, that type of situation, that is when I will look at my client and go, take a deep breath. If a friend of yours said this to you, what would you tell? I'd tell them to get out. And I'd be like, yes! Oh my God, get the hell out. Yeah, do you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah.
And I just think, my concern is a lot of people don't realize the ethical boundaries you guys have. I mean, because that isn't it. I mean, that's a boundary that you have to. I mean, you're almost obligated to say something.
Yeah, because at that point, it is now he is in danger.
Right.
From this nut job.
Right.
So it's kind of like I can't just sit there and be like, I don't know. What do you think? No.
Right.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
If your friend was going through this, what would you tell them? Well, then do that.
I like that. So I just want to say that, and I think what Kris was talking about. I mean, you guys know I'm a big proponent of therapy. I mean, and to be for all honesty and disclosure, that didn't happen until I went through this. When I was growing up, I thought all therapists were witch doctors, and I didn't get it, right. And I mean, and I've had some bad experience with some of them, and. The thing is if you don't heal the core wounds, you're screwed.
Yes.
You're going to keep doing the same thing. You're going to, I mean, like I know you see this too. You see the people who are like, why do I keep attracting, these toxic people? Or worse, it's like, they have a relationship with an overt narcissist, male or female. They find the next person who's like, oh my God, this person is so attentive, and they're covert and they're love bombing in a different way, and they don't do it.
Yep.
But it's still toxic. It's still
because they haven't healed this. So if you've got a mom or a dad or both, or a grandparent or caregiver or whatever that inflicted all of this damage, what we tend to do is we look outside of ourselves and we go, oh, look, subconsciously, there's somebody that reminds me just of mom or dad or grandparents or whatever. And so we go, oh, if I can make that person love me, I prove this person wrong. Half of a doo-doo sandwich, half of a doo-doo sandwich. Total doo-doo sandwich.
One thing I'll add on to that, and that's perfect, I love that, is the other aspect of this is if you're not healed and you think you are, and it is super easy to, you get out of your divorce, you get out of your relationship. Like even in my situation, the ex stopped messing with me. We were kind of semi-stable. We weren't communicating. We weren't co-parenting. Right. But things were relatively stable. Right. And I put all that stuff, under the chair. Yep. and in a nice little box. And I'm like, I'm feeling great. Everything is awesome. I met a really wonderful person who I actually still am dating. I still have regrets that I dated too soon, and that she ended up having to go through some of the stuff that I'm going to mention here in a minute. But what happened is, as soon as the ex found out, all hell broke loose.
Oh God, yes.
You know, called not Child Protective Services, but called Child Support Services.
Oh,
and
no,
just,
they'll do that.
I was lucky mine did. Well, the reason mine didn't is my job is very sensitive to certain things, and certain things would make me unemployed, and she then there's no check.
Yeah, she wants the money.
But what happened with me that I now find fascinating, but I didn't enjoy at the time, is I had a person who respected my boundaries, who didn't put me down, who is a very loving, unconditional, loving type person, and it blew my mind.
Right.
And when I say that, I mean, there was a period of time like, wow, this is so awesome. But as everything ramped up, it got to the point where I couldn't understand how my entire life, maybe there needs to be a couch and I should be laying down, but my entire life, all I ever wanted was I wanted my dad, my mom, my brother, my wife to treat me like this. And now this person is doing it, and it actually sent me into a very dark depression.
Yes, that is not uncommon. So
good. This is good to talk about.
You're normal. It's okay. So, so when we have had abuse, original wound, and the little kid inside of us, inner child work. I'm really big on the inner child work. So when the little kid inside of us is just going, but I just want to be loved. I just want mom. I just want dad. I just want my brother. I just want my sister. I just want this. I just want that. And we finally get it. Oh my goodness. This goes against all of the programming that we have had our entire life.
Yeah.
And so our inner child is struggling with this cognitive dissonance is what it is. So we've had all of these messages that say one thing, but now incoming information is saying something else.
Yeah.
And that causes us to go, what is real? Is this real? Is this not real? Oh my God, why is this happening now? And then we set about to sabotage the good stuff.
Oh, and
because we don't feel we deserve it. We don't feel we deserve it.
It was, and the crazy part, it's funny you say it, funny, ironic. I was in the process of doing that. I was sabotaging the relationship, and what would happen is, I would get depressed, and I'm like, I don't want to go anywhere, I'm just going to stay home, and I was just getting, worse and worse and worse.
Right.
And I expected my girlfriend to lash out at me and say, what the hell is your problem? Why are you being
Which is what the ex would do.
Which is what the ex would do.
Which is what the family of origin would do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she would, she'd like, hey, you know what? You should come see a movie with me.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to not go. I'm not going to, so it was one of those things where she wasn't attacking me. She wasn't, well, if you don't go, I'm just going to go by myself. It wasn't none of that. And it actually made it worse. It did. I mean, it was really weird. And we were talking about this before. I had an excellent therapist. She was, the funny part is she was supposed to be our co-parenting therapist, and the ex refused. So I refused to do it. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I'm embracing the therapy thing. I've already met you. I've already, whatever. We started the ball. Can you just work with me one-on-one? She's like, yeah, sure. So I worked with her for a few years. The lady was phenomenal.
Awesome. I
mean, to the point where there were sometimes I would force myself to go to therapy thinking, why am I going? This is a waste of time. What's going to happen? And I would go and I would have a session. I would walk out and my mind would be blown. And it wasn't, it was weird. And she would do things like this. We would be talking about something and I would say something and she would go, oh, like what you were talking about with your mom. And I'm like, and I would pause and I'm like, I told you that 8 months ago. And she, so guys, you owe it to yourself to find, and we'll get into this too. And actually, let's use this as a segue.
Okay.
So what I was going to say is you owe it to yourself to find yourself a good therapist. So the question is, I lucked out.
Yes.
It was just, the universe, God, whoever made it happen. And there's a lot of truth to that. But how does somebody find a therapist that can really understand this and that they can work with and that they can trust? I mean, what would you recommend for someone doing that?
Word of mouth is the best. So finding somebody who has been there, done that, gone to a therapist, loved their therapist, really got a lot out of their therapist, word of mouth is always the best. Unfortunately, in some of the smaller towns, that's not going to happen. So what you want to do, because like some places, they just don't have good therapists. So you may need to go to a bigger city. Or you may need to work with a life coach who has dealt with narcissistic abuse at that point until you can get to a therapist that you can work with. So what you're looking for is word of mouth. You're looking for somebody who is absolutely, their specialty is trauma. Because all of this abuse is trauma-based. It's either the stuff that's been going on with the ex, or it's the stuff that's happened with the family of origin. So you need somebody who understands trauma. You also need somebody who is not a humanist. Can I tell you how much I hate humanists?
A humanist? What's a
humanist? Okay. So in the schools, there's this form of thought where they're trying to get rid of all of the labels.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah. So the most important thing for survivors of abuse is being able to label things so that you validate it. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so there's a whole bunch of humanists out there that are like, oh, we don't want to hurt their little feelings. I'm like, I'm sorry. This person has thrown this person against the wall and broken bones, has beaten the child,
that's not good.
You know, and you're telling me you're worried about their feelings? Oh, this is where I would start swearing. I'm not going to, but just insert the 4-lettered words here. So, do you see where I'm going with that?
No, I want to dovetail on that because I think, you know, the way I look at this is there's a phase you go through, right? You go through the denial phase, and then whenever, in the early part of it, you're consuming all the information that's validating your experience.
Right.
Validating that it was abuse.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, if it's physical, it's easier to say, well, I got hit.
It is easier. The mental is harder. Well, because here's what happens.
Because you don't really believe it.
You don't believe it.
You've rationalized it.
You've rationalized it. And what we tend to do is we tend to go, oh, well, but my abuse is not as bad as Harold's abuse. Or Susan's abuse. So what we do is we invalidate ourselves because that's what we got growing up.
Oh, good point.
Does that make sense?
That absolutely makes sense.
So you got to stop invalidating your experience. This is not a competition. Abuse is abuse.
Yeah.
If it was verbal, it was verbal. If it was physical, it was physical. And you are not comparing it to anybody else.
And I'm glad you brought that up because one thing my thought on this is, from doing this channel for a little over 3.5 years, I've had an opportunity to compare stories. So in comparing stories, there are some people who are, I'm like, oh dear God, thank God I'm not them, right?
Right.
But at the same time, I think that initial pain or the initial wound or that initial, well, pain, I think is the right way to say it, is the same. I mean, I felt the same as I had my dark time, you know, I mean, it was not a good experience. It was very scary.
Right.
And when you're in that mode, it is the same, right? I mean, you could look at it and go, someone else can just have this horrific, you know, abuse and maybe sexual abuse as a kid and all this stuff where you're just like, holy crap, I didn't have that.
Right.
But you're still going through the same emotional...
The same feelings, the same thoughts, the same denial, the same rationalization, the same excuse making. That's the scariest part, I think, for survivors of abuse, is that initially we excuse.
Yeah.
We excuse the abuse. We excuse, oh, well, they had a hard childhood. Yeah. They had a bad upbringing. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm sorry. I've had a terrible childhood.
They just had a bad day at work.
Yeah.
And it was like, they're not always like this.
It's just when they have a bad day at work, which then becomes every single day. So we got to stop denying. We got to stop excuse making. We got to stop rationalizing. And we got to stop minimalizing our own pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you on that is how I see people get stuck in the validation phase.
Yes.
They and I have a hard time even like going on the narcissistic abuse recovery Facebook forums because it's just there's people who just get like stuck in that mode. And I know validation is important, but how would you encourage, so if you have somebody who's in that, I mean, how do they get from that into, okay, how do I take my life back?
Yeah. Okay. So think of it this way. When the abuser is abusing, okay, they do something called intermittent positive rewards. Just like a dog. So it's just like training a dog. So when you're training a dog to sit, you don't give them a treat every single time. It's like every third time or every sixth time. And eventually, all you have to do is make the hand motion and the dog will sit. Right. That is what abusers are doing to us. So I love you, I love you, I love you, I hate you, love you, hate, 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 love, 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 hate, you, love, you, hate. So it's all this love, I hate, love, I hate, love, I hate, love, I hate. And we start living for those moments, few and far between. The breadcrumbs.
We can get in that in a little bit.
So what it is the exact same thing as chasing a high. So when a meth addict gets involved in meth, they use the meth, it dumps all of the endorphins, dopamine, serotonins, everything all at once. It takes 3 months for that to build back up again. But no, they don't wait 3 months. They keep hitting it, and they keep hitting it, and they keep hitting it, hoping to get that high again. And that is exactly, thank you, refrigerator. That is exactly what we do when we are addicted to the intermittent positive rewards. We get addicted to the person. We're not addicted to the abuse, guys. I want to make that perfectly clear. Pisses me off when I hear therapists, don't get me started, insert swear words here, say that, oh, you're addicted to the abuse. No, we are addicted to the intermittent positive rewards.
So I want to just dovetail our caveat on that is if you have a therapist that says that,
get rid of them.
You need to find a new therapist.
Get rid of them. Fire them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was going to mention, you were talking about areas that don't really have resources locally. I wanted to ask your opinion on this because I don't know what you think about BetterHelp.
I know nothing about it.
So I've tested the service. They reached out to me to try to hey, why don't you promote it? And I sometimes do when it's appropriate. But I'm like, I'm not going to do this unless I try it.
Right.
And so like, hey, here you go. You can use the service. You don't, you can just use it as a client. And I did, and they matched me with somebody, and she was phenomenal. I didn't use her that much, but from the first conversation, she's like, oh, it sounds like you've been dealing with somebody who's narcissistic and knew the terms and was very.
That's a good point. So you need somebody who understands the terms, gets the narcissistic abuse, gets what survivors go through, knows about trauma. Yeah, and if you can find a therapist like that, whether it's online or whether it's in person, do it.
And the cool part about that system is if you don't like the person, you just like
fire them.
Yeah, you basically say, give me another one, and they put you back in the queue. And you put information on what you're looking to do. I mean, so I had to fill out some forms on what I was doing. So, they, I don't know, shopped it around or different therapists had an opportunity to look at it. And this person said, okay, I'll take this one.
And it depends on the state laws too, guys, because I want to make that very clear. So in Arizona, I cannot counsel anybody outside of the state of Arizona, which is stupid.
Yeah,
don't get me started.
Kind of annoying. And so that's the thing on that is whoever they match you with is licensed to provide that service in that area.
Right.
So I think it's another thing to look at. It's not necessarily cheap.
No.
No. But if you use it a lot, your copay, like for me, I think my copays are like $20 or $25 a visit. If you're going once a week, that starts adding up.
Right.
Being able to do this video, email, text interaction with a therapist, you have a lot more access, is what I would say.
Exactly.
So that I think that was an interesting concept on that.
Yeah, and I think it's if you have to use it. For me, it's like I don't care who you go to as long as they are moving you forward. Yeah. That's all I care. If they're a life coach, if they're therapy, what's the name of it?
BetterHelp.
BetterHelp. Or if it's going to a person in person. And here's the other thing, guys. You have the right to fire your therapist. You absolutely have a right to fire your therapist. If they don't know what they're doing, if you don't like them, if you're not... More than half of the therapy is the relationship. You have
building
to
the
have...
trust.
Yeah, you got to build the trust. You got to trust your therapist. You've got to be able to communicate. And if that's not there, fire them. Totally.
I know the hard part is that it's like the mental health community is overtaxed. So like even whenever I was trying to find somebody, getting someone to return your phone call in your area for like an in-person thing is really tough. It was just, like I was trying to find one for my daughter recently and nobody would even return, half the time they wouldn't return the calls. I had one that I called and I didn't call her doctor and she got all mad.
Oh, narcissist.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, you're not a good one. No. I really wish I could have used mine, but she was just like, it's a conflict of interest. Well, two parts. Actually, it was 2 parts. It was conflict of interest, and then when I pushed it, it was kind of like, I've never treated your ex. I don't want anything to do with her.
Right.
So, I'll work with you. That's fine, but I don't want to be in
involved.
This other situation.
Yeah,
so,
I totally understand.
And I appreciated her honesty on that, but it was also...
So here's the thing for me. It's like when somebody calls me, I return their phone call within 24 to 48 business hours. That's just what I do. And I am booked solid. Like I see 40 clients a week almost every single week. So, and this is where I get pissed, is when therapists are like, I'm too busy. I don't have time. Oh, really? Are you seeing 40 clients a week every single week and returning phone calls within 24 hours? Well, guess what? I'm doing it. You can do it.
Yeah.
So that's a good sign of not to use a person. If they don't return your phone call, if they don't return your email, if they're snarky, if they're nasty, if they've got this "I'm better than you" attitude, screw that noise.
Oh, and one of the things I recommend people to do, and I just want to get your take on this, is when I say when you're, and I haven't talked about this in a while, but don't walk in there and say, my ex is a cluster B, NPD, borderline comorbid, but don't do that.
No,
unless they have a diagnosis. If they have a diagnosis, if I was to come to you and say, hey, Kris, here's the diagnosis. My ex has this.
Yes.
Can you help me? Yes. That's different.
That is totally different. So I have had clients that have gone through divorce cases where they've been forced to get, everybody in the family is forced to get evaluated. I will ask for that evaluation. And yes, if there's all these diagnoses, then yes, absolutely that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
But you cannot diagnose somebody without having them in front of you. And you cannot diagnose somebody just based on observation, unfortunately, because, it's a legal thing. So.
Well, and yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then in my mind on this is if I came into you and I started spouting off all this stuff and you'd probably say, oh, really? Where'd you get the diagnosis? And it's like, oh, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos or whatever. It's going to pivot the focus, I think, on what you
want to work on onto you.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
So focus on behaviors, right?
Yeah.
So if I was coming into you, I wouldn't say, it's narcissistic behavior and there's love bombing and there's triangulation and whatever. I would say effectively the same thing.
Right.
But I would say I can't communicate. It feels like I'm dealing with somebody who is, an adolescent in an adult body.
Right.
And I think, to me, it is two parts, right? If the therapist understands it, they're going to say, probably what you're dealing with. They'll be able to say, oh, okay, it sounds like this. And you're like, okay, bing, ding, 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 ding.
Yep.
But and it's the same thing. I don't know, we're not talking about attorney stuff, but it's the same thing in the law. When you're in family court, do not go in and start throwing this stuff around.
Right.
Unless your attorney says, you know what, I know this, I know the judge, and this helps the case. But you don't, you could mention it to your attorney. They should be aware that this is a high conflict, toxic divorce.
Yes.
Some of them don't know how to deal with it.
Find a good attorney. So you need an attorney that understands dealing with high conflict divorce, understands dealing with personality disorders. You want one that's well connected in the legal community.
Yes.
Because I hate to say it, guys, a lot of cases are made or broken. Decided on the golf course.
I call it judicial theater. You'll go to them and they're like, this is outrageous, and we're going to get you this and we're going to get you that. They throw their hands up. You're like, oh wow, this feels good. You give them the $4,000 to $5,000, and then, like Kris is saying, then they go to hey Bill, you got my clients, whatever. What's going on? Oh, hey, I need a BMW this time, so let me win. I don't think it's that
I
quite
don't think it's that bad. Well, in some cases it can be.
Yeah,
it might be. But yeah, no, they do all know each other, guys. They do. And they all socialize and they all get together and talk. And if the attorney is well liked by the judicial part of it, the judges, they're going to tend to side with the attorneys that they like. So like, for example, there was a case that I was working with where the attorney was just phenomenal and everybody loved him. And the opposing attorney was clearly disordered. I can't diagnose him, but if I had to guess.
He had strong traits. That would be a great case study, right?
And so started getting histrionic and yelling and screaming when he didn't get his way. And I was watching the other attorney and he was just as cool as a cucumber. Yes, no, let's do this logically. Let's get this done. And the judge was so frustrated with the other attorney, they went in favor of the...
Yeah.
So get a good attorney. It's worth it.
So, and again, I would say word of mouth, make sure you get some recommendations.
Yep. Absolutely. And be prepared. This is not cheap. So it drives me crazy when I'm dealing with people. And
it's not fast.
It's not fast. My dad was an attorney. So here's what I know about the law. The wheels of justice turn incredibly slowly, but they grind finely. In other words, it takes time to plow through all of this evidence. If you've got an ex that's crazy and is sending email after email after email after email after email after email, and you're submitting all of this into evidence, the judge has to plow through all of this stuff.
And a lot of times they won't.
The bad ones won't. The good ones will. And there are a few good ones, at least that I know of. And unfortunately, they start retiring because they get older and they retire.
Well,
but yeah.
One thing I would add on that is if your ex is doing that, or your soon-to-be ex is giving you this treasure trove of evidence, but you have to make damn sure that you don't jump into the fray as well.
So here's the deal. Boy, we're really jumping topics all over the place today.
Sorry about that.
When you are leaving your ex, when you have gone through therapy, you've realized you've done everything you could, they've used stuff against you, you're done. Now you're hiring an attorney. Okay, when you are leaving your ex, never have direct communication with them. Ever. So like no phone calls. I want everything in writing. So email, text, those two. Then when you respond, it's only to things that need to be responded to. So this is a good point, and I want to bring this up. We get trained by our abuser to defend ourselves.
Yep.
We get trained.
I think that we have to, because if we don't, then we're saying that they're right because we didn't defend ourselves.
Exactly. But they get us into this mode of, well, but no, I did this because of da 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 da, and it's like, As soon as you're done, be done. And so if they let's say that you're in a custody battle. Let's say you've got kids. So they send one line in a 10-page email, which I've seen happen, about the kids, and everything else is a condemnation of who you are as a person.
How bad you are as a human.
Yes. What you are to do is you have to set your ego aside, and you have to find that one line that pertains to the children, and you respond only to that. Now, that's going to drive you crazy because the little kid inside of you is going to go, but they're mean. Well, yeah, they are.
It's funny. I have a playlist that kind of helps people through this, and my very first video in it, I call it Hybrid No Contact, because if you have children, you can't go no contact.
Right.
And everything you just said, that's the technique. It's and that's what I've said. If it's a diatribe on how you are the worst human in the world, but they asked when little Johnny's soccer match is, little Johnny's soccer match is at 6 at park, at field 5. And that's it.
And that's it.
And if you do that, then you have evidence of the 10-page diatribe, and you being the mature person and only hitting the significant point and ignoring all the other stuff because it's irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where it's important, guys. And listen to me now, believe me later. If you are in a custody battle with one of these people, okay, and I use the term people loosely, demon is more like it. But, if you're in a custody battle with one of these types of people, and you keep responding to all of their craziness, the judge is going to go against you. I just had a case where absolutely the opposing person was inappropriate to be around the children, and yet because the client continued to engage in all of this tit for tat, the judge went against him. And I'm like, Mamma mia. So don't respond. Don't respond. Don't respond. Don't respond. Only respond to what you legally have to, and that's it.
It's so simple.
Yeah,
but it's so critical.
To do, and it's hard to do.
It is.
Because
it really is.
We're so used to responding and tit for tat. Now,
I would do that. I would. She would. There would be an email, or maybe I don't know who would start it, but there would be a "you're a horrible human." Then I would be like, "Why I'm not," and "Why you are,"
right?
And this back and forth thing.
Yeah, but that's what they want.
And it was pointless.
Yeah.
I mean, all it did is stress me out.
It's a Hoover.
It's
a Hoover. So I want you guys to remember, not all Hoovers are the baby, I've changed. Yeah. I promise you this time it'll be different. Yeah. Huge amounts of roses or whatever.
It can be. Right in the eye.
And that's exactly it. So sometimes the Hoovers are the nasty hit and run screw yous. That's what I call them.
Yeah, good point.
And they want you to respond angrily because that's narcissistic supply for them. If they can get you to... Here's the thing.
That was what I was going to bring
They cannot stand being ignored. So love them, hate them, they don't care. Don't ignore them.
Yeah.
So the best thing that you can do to hurt a narcissist, totally ignore them.
And the caveat on that, or the which I absolutely agree with, but you also need to be prepared. They're going to ramp it up.
Oh, yeah.
So, I know I've had a few people who was like, well, I've gone no contact and now it's done this. Well, you kind of have to hunker down. It's like, it's like get in your foxhole, put your helmet on, wait for the barrage, the mortar rounds to, why I'm using all these military references.
Well, because it's war.
Well, yeah, that's true.
It's war. Think about it. Yeah. It's like, okay, so they're crazy, right? And they're usually, the ones who do that are usually the Dark Triad. So that is the narcissist with the Machiavellian, which is the control freak, with the psychopath. Yay! Great combination.
Yeah, that's fun.
And then you add drugs on top of that, or alcohol, and that's a Molotov cocktail waiting to happen.
You gotta have that one.
Yeah. And they usually do have some sort of addiction going on. So the ones who stalk, the ones who harass, the ones who continue years later to send threatening emails or to continue to do all of this stuff, they are crazy and they are dangerous. And my advice is if you get a threat of any kind, whether you were in a custody battle or not, you file a restraining order against them and you ask for emergency custody.
Even if you're a guy.
Even if you're a guy, especially if you're a guy.
Well, I just say that because a lot of people, I know a lot of guys are programmed to, well, it's not that bad, you know, well, she just
Stop
slapped
minimalizing.
me. Well,
No. Stop minimalizing. Guys, listen to me now. Believe me later. If you're a male and you are being abused in any way, shape, or form, here's the thing to ask yourself. If this person were doing this to a woman, what would the woman do?
Yeah.
Hello, you would file a restraining order. You would protect yourself. You would, do you see where I'm going with that? And the crazy ones will, I've had this happen, create false personas on Facebook, on YouTube, on whatever, and try to stalk and try to, friend you and friend your friends and friend your family. And so when you get divorced, male or female, listen to me now, believe me later, you let everybody know, okay, I am divorcing this person. Do not accept any new friend requests from anybody unless you know them personally, because they will do that. They will try to get to the family and the friends that way and do a smear campaign.
Oh, and on that, just to throw this out, I mean, this is going to be obvious, but then if they get information about what's going on with you, and you have kids, they will absolutely use that to triangulate with the kids.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I saw that in my situation where it was like, how did they know? How did that even come up? You know, and it wasn't necessarily stuff with the kids, but there was stuff that happened without them that I, like an idiot, posted or told certain people, and it just
stop being mean to you. You didn't know.
Yeah.
You didn't know. This is the thing, guys. We're so used to putting ourselves down. We don't know. If we popped out of the womb understanding what a narcissist was or what an abuser was, trust me, we would never date them. So you can't know what you don't know until you know it.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. I had I remember having a conversation with my therapist, and I didn't know about narcissism at the time. Or maybe it was right around that time. And I remember saying, you know, at the time I was a senior manager where I was working. I had a lot of people working for me. So I knew how to operate in that environment. And I'm like, how is it that I can, you know, my professional life is okay, but this personal thing is a complete mess. And you know, now I realize that that's not unnormal in these situations.
Right. We compartmentalize.
Yeah.
So we can have, it's the same thing as self-esteem. We can have great self-esteem and everything's fine in our work situation, but we can have terrible self-esteem in our romantic situation. So really is, what we do is we start, especially because we've been raised to compartmentalize. You know, sometimes dad's nice, sometimes dad's not. Sometimes mom's nice, sometimes mom's not. So we start compartmentalizing, and what's happening is we start dissociating from the abuse, and we start excusing it. So you guys got to be really careful of compartmentalizing and dissociating. So,
but it's a long process, and it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
You're not going to go, even if you found the best therapist in the world, like Kris.
Thank you.
And you're not going to go to 1 or 2 sessions and walk out cured.
No, because you have to plow through. It's like cleaning out a horse stall. I don't know if you guys own horses or not. I used to when I was a kid. So when you clean out a horse stall and it hasn't been cleaned in years, you got to grab a shovel and you got to go through that first layer of crap, right? Until you get to the nice, clean floor, either the dirt or the wood, whatever. And then you got to get a hose and then you got to clean it. It's a process. So you're plowing through years and years and years of crap to get down to the base. And then once you get down to the base, then you can really clean that out and make sure that that's good. And then, and only then, can you consider dating at that point. People dive into dating too soon because they don't like being alone.
Yep.
They don't like the voice inside their head, their inner critic. And when people tell me, I can't stand being alone, well, what are you telling yourself?
You know, I've actually made videos on this, and everything you're saying I completely relate with, and I went through, and I mean, in the beginning part of it, I felt like, oh my God, I'm never going to find anyone, I'm going to be alone, no one will ever love me, it'll be terrible.
That is so common.
And what was amazing is, and I still hadn't completely healed. So this happened before I got the secondary attack, but I started to, I lost my train of thought. I started to calm down and actually feel good with myself. Like I couldn't back in the day, going out to eat by myself and sitting in a restaurant by myself, I would get anxiety.
Yes.
It would freak me out.
Yeah.
I'll sometimes now I'll like, I'm gonna go to lunch, and I was like, do I want to talk to do I want to invite someone with me? No. And I'll just go and I'll read news or read an article on my phone. Since who has newspapers anymore?
Right.
And the thing is, guys, if you do this and you get that part where you're okay with yourself, it changes everything.
It does. Because
now you can have real boundaries. Because when you're not, and you meet with somebody and you're kind of in that honeymoon stage, and then you start seeing some red flags, you're like, well, I don't want to be alone. You got that little thing you're saying, oh my God, I don't want to be alone. So it's not that bad. It's not that bad. It'll be okay. But what you want is you want to have in your back of your mind where it's like, you know what? I like myself. I like being by myself. Not that I'm being antisocial and it's like, I hate people. But I mean, just like I can sit here and have a nice cup of coffee, open the window, look out at the nature and be completely at peace. When you're in that mode, you don't put up with BS anymore.
Right.
Because you can have good boundaries.
Exactly.
And when somebody starts doing it, you're like, and then you can have the conversation. You could turn around and say, hey, we need to talk about this because this is a problem. This is a deal breaker. And you mean it.
Right.
Because I know I was married, I don't know if we talked about this before, but I was married 21 years when everything fell apart.
Right.
Every time I would get to the point that there was something that I felt I needed to talk about, in the back of my mind, I'm like, is it worth risking the marriage?
Oh.
No, and I would let it go. I would like, okay, and then a couple days later, I would disassociate, and it would be like it didn't happen. I'd get some breadcrumbs, and things would be different.
Right.
I want to pivot to one last topic because I know we're starting to run a little long.
Which always happens.
I know. Well, this might have, maybe I'll have to break this up into multiple videos. I also have to make sure that the camera doesn't stop recording.
Right.
For people who have children with this, and I know I struggled with this in the beginning, and it's really tough because as soon as you know, as soon as you find out, you want to tell everybody.
Right.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Talk to your life coach, we're going to pause because something just...
Oh, no.
And we're back. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to chat with you about is for the people who have kids in these situations, it's very complex.
Yes.
And so I guess I know whenever I started finding out about this, I wanted to tell everyone.
Right, don't.
And yeah.
Don't do it.
And especially with your kids.
Right.
And so what do you recommend for people who have kids and you're at the point to where you strongly suspect that your ex has a personality disorder, undiagnosed?
Right.
What do you do?
So you be honest when the kids point out, dad or moms, because remember, women can be abusers too, bizarre behavior, you validate what the kids are seeing, okay? But you cannot come out and bad mouth the other parent. Why? Because the kids are 50% them, and kids are very egocentric. And I don't mean that like, oh, I'm a narcissist. I mean egocentric as in they internalize because they think everything is their fault. They do. So like if mom and dad break up, you have to make it very clear to them, we are breaking up because we are adults and we are not getting along, and we are doing this so that we can both be happy and you can be happy and safe, okay?
Right.
So you never ever badmouth the ex, no matter how crazy they get, and they do, and they are, and they will. Yeah.
So how do you pivot that to where, because you don't want to invalidate what they're feeling, right? So if little Johnny comes up to you and says, mommy's mean to me, I mean, obviously you're not going to say, well, little Johnny, that's because she's a batshit, narcissistic, comorbid, blah,
No.
Yeah.
You can say, okay, tell me more. How are they mean to you? What is happening? And then you get the whole story, and then you document the living crap out of it. Something's beeping.
It's that one.
That one?
That's
okay.
fine though. We're okay.
You document everything. Let's say Johnny comes home and says, mommy's mean to me.
Right.
Oh, hun. So this is after like a 5225. So 5225 is the general 50-50 custody.
It's horrible.
It's horrible. And the concern is, of course, is that your child is spending 50% of the time with somebody who we know to be disordered, right?
Well, and I would even say not having a full week to really kind of like have a good transition and build into it, you're constantly resetting.
Always.
I call that the Groundhog Day effect.
Oh, it is. It's like you're co-parenting. You're not co-parenting, you're parallel parenting.
Yeah. Or counter-parenting.
Or counter-parenting. And so when the kids come home, they're going to be acting out. They're going to be yelling at you. They're going to be taking it out on you. And the reason why is because you're the same parent.
Yeah.
So a lot of parents get upset because they're like, why are they being so horrible to me? Because you're the safe parent. You're the one that the kids know is always going to be there. But you've got to draw boundaries with that. You've got to be like, Johnny, I love you, and I am not going to put up with disrespect. Right. Period. You're more than welcome to air whatever you're thinking or feeling, but I am not going to put up with disrespect. And you stick to that. So what happens is they go over to the other parent, they get screamed at, yelled at, abused, whatever. They come home, they need to detox, and so they go onto the safe parent, but then the safe parent feels guilty and does the whole, I'm just going to let him do that. Wrong, incorrect response.
Well, I have a twist to that because I tried both with mine. I tried this is the way it's going to be, knock it off now, go right into punishment. What I found in my situation is it destroyed the entire time. If it was the 2 days, it was horrible. If it was my 5-day period, maybe by the weekend it would be okay. Like the last day, right?
Right.
What I started to do is when they would come over on the Groundhog Day, I would take a deep breath, and I would let them transition, and kind of give them a pass, for the day.
For the day only.
And then what I would do is when things calm down, because typically when I did that, my transition time was Wednesdays. So Wednesday and Thursdays was my every 2 days, and then every other weekend. Normally, if I did it that way, by Thursday everything was fine.
They were okay.
And then I would say, "Hey, buddy," or "Honey," depending on which one I was talking to, and I'm like, "Hey, what happened the other day? That what was up with that?"
You're right.
And I think a lot of times it's kind of like it's still the same thing you're saying. It's just a little caveat.
It's a little going into it. So in other words, what you're saying is when the second they come home, don't draw the line. And I agree. And you don't want them to continue with the disrespectful behavior.
Yes. And the other thing I would say on this is it's a trap.
Yes.
Right? I mean, if you're dealing with a toxic, narcissistic ex-spouse, they so want you to do your normal behavior, which my normal behavior would have been like, we're not having this. The problem is then I fall into the narrative that she was trying to create, which is effectively I'm alienating the kids myself by my own actions.
Right.
And
so the opposing the spouse, the ex, whether male or female, is going to participate in child alienation.
Yeah.
Okay. This happens to men. This happens to women. Whoever the crazy is, they do it, and they use kids as a pawn. And
absolutely.
The kids are so confused in this whole thing because they're terrified of the abuser. They're safe with the other one, but they don't want to piss off this one, but they don't want to alienate this one, but they have to please that one. So what's going to happen is that they're going to try to side with the abuser. Why?
It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's because the abuser will punish them if they don't. And just like us, think about it. When we were raised by original wound people over here, we sided with the abuser. We made excuses for the abuser. They're going to be doing the same thing. So when you get your divorce decree or your custody issue, you've got to make sure to put in there that the kids can get counseling, period. And you want to try to get the final say in medical, because what the abuser will do is try to get the final say in medical, and they'll try to dictate who the kids can see. So you're going to have to agree upon it, but you definitely want to get a therapist that is DBT, that understands personality disorders, that gets narcissistic abuse, that gets high conflict divorces, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And those kids have got to go to therapy.
And make sure it's written in your order.
Yes.
Because if it is not, if it is, they are still going to create havoc with it.
Yes.
But at least it's in the order.
Yeah.
If it's not in the order, they will say, I don't want to put my kids through it. They've been through enough. They don't need therapy. You need therapy.
Right.
I
don't believe in therapy.
Right.
Therapists are a bunch of hokum, blah, 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 blah. And the reason they don't want the kids to have therapy is because they don't want somebody documenting what they're doing to the kids. Because eventually, God willing, you'll be able to save up enough money to go back to court and get full custody. Now, in the state of Arizona, when the kids reach about 15, 16, the judges will take into consideration what the kids are feeling. So in some cases, the kids are able to go, nope, don't want to go over to mom's, don't want to go over to dad's, we're done. And the judge will go, okay. The problem is when you've got multiple children that are older and younger, the judge will say, okay, Johnny, you're 16, you don't have to go. Then Johnny feels guilty because Henry has to at age 11.
I have a good example of that. My kids are 20, 18, and 14. My 20-year-old still transitions. My 18-year-old, she's in college right now. And his reasoning was he was scared to death that it would mess up the other two. And it's kind of sad to watch. He is just getting brutalized. He's now the scapegoat and the target of everything.
Right.
So, and I know I'm assuming the answer would be the same. So what I tell people too is, don't be the one to have the conversation with what the other parent is.
Right.
Right.
No.
Because inevitably, what'll happen is the narcissist, especially if they're covert, they'll start throwing some breadcrumbs. the kids will gobble up that attention, like we were talking about earlier in the other video,
right?
And then they're going to turn around and blame you that you were lying or you were exaggerating or blowing things out of proportion.
So they try to be the Disneyland dad or mom. They get, well, we don't have any rules over at mom's house. How come we have rules here? Or we don't, she takes us or he takes us to Magic Mountain all the time or Disneyland, or, we don't have to do homework when we're over there. Why do we have to do it here? So they undermine. My
big one was showers or, taking baths. Why do I have to take a bath every day? I don't have to do it at mommy's. She doesn't make me do it.
That is the weirdest thing.
I actually, this is kind of funny. So there was a period, it was really weird, right? Because, mine was a stay-at-home mom.
Right.
This was like hers to win, right? All she had to do was just continue to do the things that she normally would do, and I'm at a disadvantage. Well, because, whatever, she decided, narcissists are very weird.
They are so weird.
And she didn't do that. But I remember, so she wasn't taking the kids to the pediatrician, right? So I was doing that. And I remember at one point, I'm in there with the pediatrician, and some long-time viewers will probably heard this story before on my channel. But I'm there with my girls, Dad and the girls doing the physical, the doctor does their thing. And, when I come back in after they do the little check, I'm like, hey, Doc, how often should the kids take showers? Oh my God. And I felt like a complete idiot because it's like, there was part of it that I'm thinking, oh my God, this makes me look like completely inept. But what I was looking for was a doctor to go, every day? I actually did like, every day, like every day, right? And that helped because as it progressed on and the girls would like, I don't have to take a shot, whatever. I'm like, I don't have to do that at mommy's like you were talking about. I'm like, look, I don't know what the deal is at your mom's house. You were there when the doctor said you're supposed to do it every day. I actually made them wash their hair every day too.
Good for you.
Which people actually were like, and my daughter at the time had really long hair, like down to her, what my youngest one did. Another funny story. So that was a nightmare, right? So I don't have long hair. I've always had short hair, so I've never had to deal with that.
Right.
So, I'm having to deal with my 8 or 9 year old or however old she was at the time, I can't remember, trying to comb out the tangles, and it just was a disaster.
Right.
And luckily I had female friends. I'm like, I don't like to, so they're like, oh, you need to use this, gave me all the stuff that you need to do, and it got better. As soon as it got better and it wasn't an issue anymore, all the hair got cut off.
Oh, that does not surprise me.
And I wasn't told about it. I went in to, because my transitions are at school or daycare. I went in to go get my daughter, and I'm like, hi, Dad. I'm like, what
happened to your hair?
Yeah, it was gone.
So this is what they do. So the abusers, and this is so weird because you're like the 10th person who's told me that in the last year. So they don't shower their kids. They don't bathe their kids. I'm not sure what the pathology is behind that, and I'm not sure what their little weird mind is thinking, but they don't bathe their children. And I think it's so that, because they don't want to be bothered, because they're selfish, and it takes time to get a kid in a bathtub and wash the hair and make sure they're, cleaning under the wings and all that sort of good stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing of it is, too, is that it's a punishment, because being dirty, that's a self-esteem thing. So that works on your self-esteem.
It's amazing you say that, because my son, when he started high school after all this, he was getting really raggedy with his hair, and I'm like, dude, you need to, buddy, you need to cut your hair. And this is when I was still trying to co-parent with the ex.
Right.
So, I would send emails to her and stuff, and what came back is, he's just trying to express himself. Why do you? Turned around and made it a negative on me that I was against my son.
Right.
And I'm like looking at him going, dude, you look like a homeless vagrant.
Right.
What the hell? And it took him a long time to connect the dots on that one. I hadn't thought about that.
It's self-esteem. It's a way to make the kids less than, because in healthy, normal families, you shower, every day, and you take care of your hygiene and you brush your teeth. They don't teach their children to brush their teeth. When I see children in an abusive co-parenting situation, the sane parent is the one that's trying to get them to brush their teeth and take care of the oral hygiene.
Yeah.
The other parent is like, no, you don't need to do that, and then feeds them a bunch of sugar before bed.
Or it could even be, not so, because mine is more covert.
Yeah.
She'll go brush your teeth, and then just
not follow through.
I mean, and it was funny because I would see her and she's got, sparkling white teeth. I'm like, Jesus, how'd you do that? And you look at the kids and they're all yellow.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, and you'll go through this when you're trying to rack your brain around it. You're like, how in the hell can a person do that to their own kid?
Because they're in competition.
Yeah.
They're jealous.
Yeah.
They're jealous. It's a competition. Especially if they have a daughter, if it's a female narcissist and they have a daughter, the daughter cannot be prettier. They cannot have prettier hair. They cannot have sparkling teeth. They can't have good hygiene. It's a competition. It is the sickest damn thing I've ever seen. And they do use this. I just had one recently where the mom took the kids in and was telling the pediatrician, well, my ex is not bathing them. How often should they be bathed? Same thing.
Okay.
And the ex was there with them because he insists on going to every single appointment. Oh, that must have been fun. And so the pediatrician looked at him and said, every day. And then they get home, and then the guy gaslights her and says, no, he never said that.
Oh my God. Yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah.
That's funny. I mean, it's not funny. But
it's terrible.
I've had that with my kids where, I can't remember what the specific incident was, but it was something along those lines where it was exactly that. It was like, no, that's not what was said. I mean. Yeah. So they gaslight, and they want the kids to be raggedy and dirty and everything because they're trying to punish the other parent. It's a competition. It's a self-esteem thing because honestly, think about it, when we have parents that love us, right? They love us. They're like, let's go take a bath. Let's get clean. Oh, what pretty hair you have. Oh, look at your teeth. Look at that. Oh, take good care of your teeth and your teeth will take good care of you. That's the one thing I remember. Yeah. So, it's like, that's instilling self-esteem. So what they're doing by going, yeah, whatever, I don't care, they're instilling bad self-esteem and not following up. Because you can say, and you can be the good parent, but like, well, because my son has cerebral palsy and early on, and asthma, and all the other fun stuff that happens with that. So there were some different things he had, like treatments and stuff, where one of the side effects they were told us is that the teeth would be ruined, right? Right. And I remember at one point, I'm seeing his teeth is yellow, and I'm going to work every day, and I'm like, hey, I'm just assuming everything's being done. And I'm thinking, oh my God, my poor kid's his teeth are, messed up. Well, he went to visit grandma for a week and came back. All the kids came back and their teeth were white. And I'm like, what the? I mean, it was one of those things. And I was still in the marriage, right? So I still was in complete denial on what reality was. Right. But it really messed with my head. I'm like, what? Right. But what mine would do is she would say, go brush your teeth or go take a shower or whatever. They wouldn't. And yeah, I mean, and here, guys, let me just say this. Like on the shower thing, stick with it and provide structure for your kid because they will beat you, and they will beat you up on it. And I want to get your take on this. They will beat you up on it. They will really push. And what you'll notice, or what I noticed, is once they realized that I was serious and that there was a real boundary and I was going to hold them accountable, it's almost like they're like, oh, wow, Daddy really loves me. And then they calm down. Yes. And it was like, and it infuriates you because you're like, oh. Right, exactly. And unfortunately, that's what you're going to have to do because kids actually do want boundaries. They really do because boundaries say that you care. Because if you don't care, there are no boundaries, right? It's like, fine, whatever, I don't care, blah, blah. That's a narcissist. So the parent who's sane has got to draw boundaries and got to stick to them. And yes, the kids are going to push back. Oh my God. Well, I don't want rules. I don't want to have to go to bed at 10 o'clock. I don't want it, whatever. You grounded me and it's been 10 minutes. Can't you undo it? Why can't you undo it? Yeah. Because the other one always gives in. So remember, the ego is involved here. So the kid's ego is the one that wants its way. Okay. Right. You need to be the mature one and be like, nope, this is the boundary. I'm going to stick to it. You can hate me all you like. You'll thank me when you're 26. The one thing I tell people, and I'd like to get your thought on this as well, is when you're in a situation like this, you have to be the good and the bad cop. Yeah. So whenever you're holding a boundary, for the love of God, hold the boundary. Hold the boundary. But give something in there that you can still do with your kid. Yes. Because you can't. Because if you go through and it's always authoritative, and if it's like you're always being punished at dad's in my situation, and it's okay, so it's crazy at mom's, but I don't. At least I'm not always getting yelled at. Right. If you ground them off at Xbox, make sure that you can go watch. You can go not watch, but you can go for a walk, or if they like to cook, they can cook. Make sure you're still spending time with them. Quality time. And yeah. That's the key. If you don't do that,
You're in
and
trouble.
I started into that trouble. I started down into that trap where it's like, okay, you're grounded. Go to your room. You can breathe minor oxygen, and that's it.
Right.
And it just you feed into the narrative that the ex is trying to set up.
That you're the bad guy.
That you're the bad guy.
Yeah.
And it just you end up undermining yourself.
Right.
So,
exactly. So you always want to. I mean, yes, you can ground them. Yes.
And you need to. I mean, you need to have boundaries. You need to be a parent.
Need to have personal accountability. That's
right.
the thing, because narcissists don't have personal accountability. So you're teaching them personal accountability, and you're also, this is an and world, guys. We're teaching them. Look, you did this wrong. I'm grounding you for this, and you and I still have a relationship. Let's go get some hot chocolate somewhere and talk.
Yeah.
Let's go spend some quality time. Let's play a board game. Let's spend time together. So yeah, that's what you got to do. It's so I feel my heart goes out to every single parent in the middle of a custody battle with one of these disordered people, because it's heartbreaking to watch. It's heartbreaking to go through. You're watching your kids be used as pawns.
Yep.
You're second guessing yourself all the time.
Yeah.
And it's hard, but stick with it, guys, because eventually they'll turn 18 and they can make up their own minds. And you won't be held hostage to the ex. And the funny thing of it is when the kids start deciding, no, I don't want to go with the ex, or conversely, this is what I've seen also, is where the kid finally gets so tired of the back and forth that they go with the ex, much to the heartbreak of the sane parent.
Oh yeah.
And then, okay, so now there's no more trauma there. The ex will start trying to cause trauma anyway, even though the kid is gone with them.
Oh yeah. They'll use it to rub it in their face, Yeah. And it'll be stuff like, oh, well, you need to pay for this, or little Johnny's doing this. You can't go. You can't be a part of it, but, he needs football outfit or something.
Yep. So be prepared. I mean, they cannot live without the drama.
Yeah.
It's the drama triangle is what it is. Somebody has to be a hero, somebody has to be a villain, and somebody has to be the victim. So. And
what I've done on my situation, because it's been relatively stable, I kind of embrace the angry, bitter ex that can't get over it. In my mind, if she thinks that she's won, and there was a period of time where the idea of letting her think she won anything was like, oh hell no.
Oh no, let them think that.
Let
them think that.
Oh, it's been a life-changing experience.
Yes, I mean, it's all about the win for them.
Yeah, because they think that they're winning. Like in my situation, she thinks she's winning. She thinks that that I'm just this angry, bitter person. Hey, you know what? I mean, anyone who watches my channel knows that's not the case. And it's just, that's where you get stability. Now, every time that I was trying to rub it in her face that I was happy,
nope.
Oh dear God.
Don't do it.
It would either come back on the kids or directly at me or through, some other.
Exactly. Yeah. You want it. The thing of it is when you're dealing with a disordered ex and there's kids involved, you want to keep the information at an absolute minimum. And you must let the children know, and this is important, your business is not to be shared with mommy. That's a hard one. Well, and that got used against me too, because I mean, the kids wouldn't tell me anything that was going on at mommy's, but it would get spun around. Well, is your dad telling you not to say anything? Right. So what I finally did, this is what I did. I started close holding information, so I was not like, hey, next month we're going to go on this trip, or we're going to go to this place, because no, you can't.
Somehow it would either be
they'd screw it up.
They would screw it up.
They would have a trip themselves.
They would either do the trip themselves, or if we were going to the beach, it would be, oh, I hate the sun, or I don't like the sand, I'm allergic to air, whatever. I mean, it was just... Right. And fully expect, just to throw it out there, I fully expect that if you go and you have a good time, and you come back, and the kids are all happy, and then they go to the other ex, expect that when they come back, their recollection of the experience is going to be diminished. Correct. It's really... It's weird. It's tough. Be the stable person. Be the rock that the kids can count on. Realize that they're going to hit you with a hammer and try to chip you every once in a while, and just try to stay the course. I mean, it is really tough. I don't think, unless you've been through it, you don't understand how hard this and draining, heart-wrenching. Yes. I just made a video I published this morning that I was answering somebody on a comment, and I hit a button and deleted the whole comment. So I figured, forget it, I'll just record it. But one of the things that that really, I'm trying to think how to say this, but I said at the end of the video that I was talking about that. I'm like, there's even times now. I mean, I've had I'm 8 years into this, a little over 8 years. My youngest, I was having some high hopes with, but she's getting some breadcrumbs from mom. So, the attitude's changing. I mean, there's a lot of weirdness that's coming up. And it's like, I do have my time where I get to the point where I'm like, 4 more years, just get over this, do the best I can to try to make sure that she doesn't screw her life up, my daughter. And it's just trying to get through it. And it sucks whenever I did this with my first one, the second one, and now the third one. It's like lather, rinse, and repeat.
Right.
Now, I'm a lot better at it now.
Right.
I have a lot of experience.
Unfortunately,
but so, it's unfortunate, but the good part is I understand the game.
Right.
And the really crazy part on this, like with my daughter, just a month or so ago, like maybe 2 months ago, she was really feeling, I mean, her mom was just poking her in the eye. I mean, it was really, and guys, just to throw this out here, if you haven't got to this point yet, once your kids start to see the mask drop, you might think that you're going to be like, yes, finally. It's heart-wrenching to watch your child have that look in their face, basically, within their eyes saying, why doesn't mommy or why doesn't daddy love me?
Oh, God, yes.
It's horrible.
It is horrible. It is because every single kid, we just want the approval and the love of our parent. And when we realize, I realized mine when I was about 17, because that's when I left the house. But when I realized that my dad absolutely did not have my best interest at heart, and neither did my mom, God love her, it was a grieving process. Yeah. It was heartbreaking for my older sister, Terry, to watch, because she was my second mom. And she's the one that helped me through it. So, it's good if you've got siblings that can, kind of be like, hey, you're right, mom and dad are crazy. And, you're not wrong, and no, they don't have your back. But it's a heartbreaking process for the other parent that's sane to watch you go through when you realize that, no, this other parent is not going to be dad of the year, mom of the year, have your back, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
But things can change on a dime.
Oh, yeah.
What I will say is, I mean, during that period of time, I was seeing that with my daughter. She was even making being really stressed about going over to see the other parent. And I wasn't like, yeah, your mom's a scumbag. I'm everything we talked about. That's kind of the way I approached it. And she was even my daughter was even making comments, kind of like, I'd rather be here. I don't know what happened. Something happened. Mm-hmm. Mom has now started throwing her breadcrumbs.
Yep.
And I'm persona non grata.
That's what they do. But that's what they do. And they go back and forth. The kids will go back and forth.
And if you don't understand effectively the psychology of it, it's really hurtful because you're like, you take it personally. Mm-hmm. But it's not.
It's not.
And one of the things I always tell people is, how are the kids with you? If your kid is lashing out or whatever, but whenever if you're in the 225 thing, you're in the third or fourth day, and you and your kid are, they come up and snuggle up with you on the couch and say, I love you, daddy, or I love you, mommy. Whatever the thing is, you're getting real feedback that there's a relationship there. You're okay.
Yep.
You're doing okay.
You're doing okay. I think where it gets sticky is like in the situation I'm thinking of is that there was a stepmom involved that was also disordered. And so it was like 2 against 1, and they were working on the kid the whole time. And,
I've seen that.
Yeah, I have too. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because then, like I said, the kid goes with the abuser and then the other parent is left going, what did I do wrong? And it's like, you did nothing wrong.
I have a coworker that I work with, female, who that happened to her. Mm-hmm. They were able to orchestrate it enough to where she lost custody of the kids. Yep. The new mom adopted the kids. Yep. And now you would think that the narcissistic family won. It's like, I've won, F you and move on with my life. They brutalized her all the time up until the kids were adults.
Yep.
Even though you're not legally responsible, your kids need braces, aren't you? Your kids. And it was a jab. It was like a reminder of what they did, mm-hmm. and to try to make you feel guilty, mm-hmm. and just to repunish you.
And to make you look like the bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're not going to give him braces? Well, aren't you a horrible parent?
Now, and I'll throw this out there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That the other thing, and you're going to, as soon as I say this, you're going to go, oh, yeah. Kids, 18, well, they were already off the dole, so to speak, because she lost her parental rights were basically terminated. Kid goes to college. Parents completely write her off. basically it's like, hey, you're on your own. We're not paying for your
hunt.
You didn't do exactly what we told you to do, how we told you to do it. So we're not paying you any. You need to pay your car insurance, your college, everything's done. We're not covering anything. And so now this person who legally isn't mom is trying to bail her daughter out.
Right.
And the thing is that a narcissist doesn't give a rat's crap about anybody.
Right.
They care about themselves.
Right.
And whoever they hurt, even their own children, they will do it and they'll justify it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure if you were friends with these people, they would explain to you why it was inappropriate. And they probably have most people convinced, that child needs to be...
So here's the thing. Most 18-year-olds, especially if they have been raised by an abuser, do not have the ability...
Emotional maturity,
because you got to remember, narcissists are 2-year-olds at best. And they instill such bad self-esteem into the child that by the time the child is 18, they're more like 10. Okay? Yeah. And so the kid's playing catch up with self-esteem, with personal responsibility, with, job hunting, teeth cleaning, physical care, hygiene, you name it. And so very few 17 and 18-year-olds are able to leave the nest and take care of themselves. Now, I was kind of a weird exception because I was so desperate to get out. I was like, I will take whatever job I can get me the hell out of here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, but most 18-year-olds that are raised by narcissists, they're lost. Yeah. And they don't know what to do because the narcissist is constantly telling them what to think, when to think it, what to do. You do this, you do that. And if you don't do exactly what I tell you to do, I'm going to kick you out. Well, then they kick them out and the kid's waiting for somebody to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
So that's a self-esteem issue. So the best thing that this parent can do is get this kid into therapy and get them working on their self-esteem and their own agency. They need to understand that they have a right to be their own agent. So really important. Really important.
That's a really good point.
So yeah.
I think we'll wrap it up there. Is there anything else you want to add before we do that?
Just be good to yourselves. Do a lot of self-care. If you are in the middle of one of these custody battles, you must be drinking enough water, eating healthy food, exercising, talking with your friends. Ask for help. Ask for help. Yeah. Ask for help. It's really important to have somebody to vent to. And Duane, I just want to say thank you for being there for the guys.
Thanks. I appreciate
especially because I think that people forget that men are the victim of female narcissists. And in some cases, same-sex narcissism. So, thank you. You're awesome.
I appreciate it.
And thank you for coming out here to do this. This is awesome.
I know, this is great. I'll leave all of her links in the description below. If I make this into a podcast, I'll put it in the show notes. But, all right, guys, thanks. Check her channel out. Subscribe to her stuff. And we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.